Welcome into the Buddhist Wisdom Podcast. I have a good friend here, as those of you watching on YouTube can see. He is going to stay anonymous for this podcast. He is the creator and administrator of a very well-known Buddhist meme page on Instagram called Darfields Gharma, and you can find it at Darfields_Gharma. So Darfield, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Scott.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while. For those of you listening on iTunes or Spotify, you're not going to bear witness to this amazing thing that I am witnessing right now, which is my good friend in a Garfield mask. So if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, I encourage you to go check out the YouTube video. So yeah, awesome. So the purpose of our conversation and why we're having this, I've been asking him for a while to join me to talk about this kind of phenomena of Buddhist memes. And some of you might not even know what I'm talking about. So we're going to get into that a bit later. We also thought to talk about Buddhism, meditation, and sort of humor in Buddhism, like historically, modern day, our own relationship to humor in our practice. And then we're going to get into his work with Darfields Gharma and just Buddhist memes in general and this phenomena of it. So this is going to be a fun one, and we're really glad you're joining us. So again, welcome. And I'm trying to keep you anonymous by not saying your name, which I have to remember. So yeah, awesome. So I think the first question I had for you and for us to kind of chat about before we get into memes is, do we take ourselves too seriously as modern meditators and Buddhist practitioners? This is kind of like a question I have.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think we do for sure. I mean, first of all, like just human beings, we're human and we're hilarious. We're hilarious creatures, right? And
Totally.
we need to laugh at ourselves. Like being able to laugh at yourself and take a step back and just like kind of look at your predicament, I think is a necessary part of like putting things into perspective. So yeah, I think humans, period, and also Dharma practitioners, can really take themselves a little bit too seriously. There's kind of certain facets and certain lineages here in the West where, it is just like so unbelievably serious, like people like drawing maps out to like where they are in the path and like talking with these groups and trying to like figure out exactly like, have they attained stream entry? You know what I mean? Like, where like how many steps are they away from becoming an arhat? And it's just like absolutely ridiculous because it just kind of defeats the whole purpose of what we're doing. So yeah, I think that, there is a lot of people taking themselves too seriously in kind of the Dharma world.
Why do you think that is? Do you have any ideas on that? And like why? I mean, I certainly can relate to what you're saying at times in my practice over the last 23 years where I've taken myself way too seriously in it.
Me too. I don't know. I think, when we start Dharma practice, we can be really tight about it, and we can be pretty zealous. And that kind of breeds seriousness, and it also kind of, it breeds a little bit of intolerance. It breeds intolerance for people practicing in different ways. It brings intolerance for kind of other lineages. It brings kind of a sense of, I'm right. This is the way. It's the only way. And I think you see that a lot. You see that a lot in spiritual communities, not just Buddhism, period.
Yeah. I think you named it. I think it's not just a phenomena. I mean, also in convert communities, sometimes we can get overly serious because there's sometimes like a lot of like zealousness there because we converted from something else, or we converted from not being spiritual or religious. And I've certainly gone through periods of taking it way too seriously. And then I think, in my experience, once we sit with the mind enough, the mind is just hilarious, like how
it's hysterical.
Just how it projects and makes ridiculous stories all the time, at least for me.
Totally. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that was one reason I wanted to host you, was not only to talk about memes and Buddhism and kind of the cool work you do, and how you came into it, but also just to sort of yeah, just have a convo about like how, we can connect both in our own practice with more lightness, more
Yeah,
curiosity, maybe more
absolutely.
humor, and then also like historically, um, you know, my relationship to Tibetan Buddhism, actually, once I, how do you say, like, after some years of kind of being in the lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, uh, getting to know and having close relationships with different Tibetan Buddhist teachers, as well as other kinds of Tibetan practitioners, both Western and Tibetan. And there's just a lightness within,
Yeah,
culturally within it. And a lot of my teachers are pretty quick to laugh, pretty quick to, just have this fluidity and openness. And it's something I always admired. And also the stories, the historical, I'm going to tell a story, you're going to tell some stories in a moment.
yeah,
You could tell in these lineages, like, when people are getting too over serious, there's someone there to kind of break that up. There's a court jester to
yeah,
kind of mess with
totally.
everyone. Yeah.
Totally. I think that that's definitely the case. I practice Chan Buddhism,
Yeah.
and in Chan there, and especially in Chan, and going into Zen, there's also a deep kind of history of humor there. Chan was kind of started with the Buddha's flower sermon. That was the beginning of Chan Buddhism, and that was recognized with the smile. So like that whole lineage started with a smile, so
Mhm.
it's, that's, I think, in this lineage, in the Chan Zen lineage, humor is a really important, and absurdity is a really important part of practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you brought in the word absurdity. I think that totally in Zen and Chan, I see that a lot, that absurdity represented. For me, it can be represented on so many levels, and I think we'll go more into that in our practice in a moment. But just to kind of share with some of the listeners, I'd love, we prepared a few stories just to share with people watching or listening. So yeah, if you want to go first, and then I'll tell one as well. But
Sure. So I know the story, but I wanted to write down some of the details. So it's a Chan story, and it's PG-13. But I think your story is also kind of PG-13 as
yeah,
well.
definitely PG-13. Yeah, yeah.
So my story is about two monks named Su Dongpo and Fo Yin. So Su Dongpo felt inspired, and he wrote a poem. And the poem was, I bow my head to the heaven within heaven, hairline rays illuminating the universe. The eight winds cannot move me, sitting still upon the purple golden lotus. So Su Dongpo was really impressed with himself by writing this poem, and he sent a messenger to carry a written copy of this poem to his friend the monk Fo Yin, and he was super super sure that Fo Yin was going to be really impressed and realize what a great kind of enlightened person he was writing this poem. And Fu Yin wrote the poem and kind of saw it that, yeah, it was both a tribute to the Buddha, but it was kind of a declaration of spiritual refinement.
Mhm.
So Fu Yin just took a marker or a pen, and on the poem he just wrote "fart," and and he had it returned to Su Dongpo. So Su Dongpo, who was expecting compliments, he gets this back, and it just says "fart," and he's shocked, he's angry, he can't believe how it's so insulted by Fu Yin. What a lousy old monk. So he rushes out of his house and kind of goes to Fo Yin's house, and he found Fo Yin, and he demanded an apology. And Fo Yin's door was closed, and on the door was a piece of paper meant for him, and the paper had two lines, and it said, "The eight winds cannot move me. One fart blows me across the river."
That's great, man.
Yeah, it's a great story, and I think it really speaks to like taking ourselves too seriously, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
kind of like our own attachment, our ego's attachment to spiritual refinement, and what great meditators we are. And then
Yeah.
it takes a Zen master just writing "fart," to really dispel all of that and make you see, like, wow, look at how the ego is functioning right now.
Totally. Yeah. For me, it's also, we don't have to unpack it completely. Sometimes you ruin a joke when you unpack it.
Totally.
Actually, always. Oh, I would say always. But
am I ruining this right now?
No, not at all, man. No. I was going to say more, but I'm just,
no, I mean,
because to me, I think like when we're talking about over seriousness, I think there's sometimes because we have aspirations and we have how do you say it, desire to progress in our meditation, to progress in our Dharma experience and realization. Yeah. That itself is not a bad thing. Like that's really wonderful. Right. We need that. Yeah. And then at a certain point, we sort of become obsessed, and there's no lightness with that. There's no flow. Right. There's no fluidity. And to me, that story is just directly talking to that of someone who thought they had, a lot of realization, and the other master's basically saying, just a huge chop,
Well, and that's where, when I think about the Bodhisattva path and, like kind of not putting yourself at the back, but really, coming in with an intent to serve others and to save all beings. It's a lot easier to be lighter on yourself when you're kind of looking at the world through the lens of the Bodhisattva path, rather than kind of looking through the world at the lens of like, I need to become enlightened in this lifetime, and I'm going to force myself to sit here in this cave and whatever, be here for 50 years until I achieve what I set out to achieve. Because when you take on the Bodhisattva vows, you kind of give up all that, right?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I concur. I think it's a very powerful method, developing bodhicitta, because we're letting go of our own self-interest, yet we're practicing, even more intensely for the benefit of others. So there can be this, so I think you have a good point there, because, maybe the over seriousness just relates to like when self-interest sort of, compromises or overtakes us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And just the ego gets in there. Like, the ego, like, one of my favorite Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche quotes, and I'm going to mangle this, is no matter what the situation, no matter what the spiritual development or attainment is, the ego is always right there, lurking in the shadows, like waiting to attach itself onto what that was, and give you delusions of grandeur.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's many spiritual songs in Tibetan tradition like that, warning. There's one from my teacher's the third Soni Rinpoche, so he's the third Tulku in the line of Soni. So the first one wrote a song where he says, like, quote, Mara lies in ambush, watch your mind, basically. Watch out, because Mara's there to ambush you. Mara, and then it goes on to say, Mara is this mind clinging to like and dislike. It's very powerful spiritual song, but very similar. You want me to share a story?
Let's go.
Well, I mean, it looks like our stories are revolving a lot around farts, so I apologize to the audience already. If it's a little too teenage boy-like, but hey, I don't know what to say. These are stories told in these traditions, so this is how monks let loose, I guess.
Just fart jokes.
Exactly. I mean, hey, who doesn't like a good fart joke? It's where
totally. Everybody likes a good fart joke.
Totally. So I'm going to give a little background on this character, because he's a famous character in the Himalayan Buddhist traditions. His name was Drukpa Kunle, and he's almost like a folk hero, right? There's a few different biographies on him, and the biographies are both inspiring and hilarious, and kind of like also a little bit, how do you say it, provocative, right? So, what I mean by that is Drukpa Kunle, some people think he was like responsible for changing the gene pool, like in an area of Bhutan. So, like there's some provocative things in his biography, but nonetheless, he's seen as what's called a Mahasiddha. So in Sanskrit, a Mahasiddha means someone who's like who's realized the attainment of the Dharma. And Maha means great. So it really means someone who's a greatly realized practitioner of Buddhism, and not only has attained enlightenment, but actually they have boons or some spiritual powers, and he's often displaying those in the stories in his biography. This particular story I heard from a lama. It's not actually, I don't think it's in one of the written biographies. So again, like in Himalayan folklore, they hold these different stories, and Drupa Kunle often becomes, he's like in different indigenous traditions, they have this kind of character. He's like the jester. He's like the one who comes in and, messes with everyone and turns the whole situation around, but at the end ends up showing some kind of spiritual power that everyone finds inspiration in. So it's sort of like he's there to kind of like subvert people's ego clinging through kind of very sometimes hilarious and sometimes just really provocative methods. So I think he's like this folk hero in Himalayan Buddhism, like I said, but also there's stories that exist in his biography and just exist probably just passed from by word. They're not written. They're just passed from like family to family or different practitioner to different practitioner. So this particular one, I've never seen it written. But it's one of my favorites. And yes, it does involve farts, as I said. So the story goes like this. So in central Tibet, around the area of Lhasa, which is the capital of Tibet, there was a severe drought happening for many months. And the drought got so bad that they started, the main chieftains, the main political figures in the area started, donating and really requesting to the monasteries, hey, we need you to really, say some strong prayers, accumulate some merit for us, help us to really remedy these droughts. And so the large monasteries with thousands and thousands of monks had been, accumulating different practices, accumulating merit, reciting aspirations and prayers to help remedy this drought. And nothing was working. And there was one chieftain in the area who had heard about Drupa Kunle because he was just famous as a great yogi, right? Kind of a wild yogi, but a great yogi. And they said, the chieftain said, hey, we should invite Drupa Kunle. He's really like a realized master with a lot of siddhi, like spiritual power, and he could definitely cause it to rain. And so they invited Drupa Kunle, and Drupa Kunle came. And as soon as he got there, he understood the problem, and he told, everyone gathered, because I think a crowd had gathered at that point, because he was very famous. He said, okay, gather, 50 kilos or something of sampa. So sampa is, it's a staple of Tibetan food that's roasted barley flour. So they take barley seeds, they grind them, or they roast them and they grind it. And then they mix that with tea and butter and eat it, like roll it into dough balls and eat it. So it's one of the primary foods of Tibetans, at least in Old Tibet. And so anyway, so they gather all this sampa. It's like flour, roasted flour, and Drupa Kunle says, okay, pour all the sampa into one pile. So they pour it into one pile as an offering. And then Drupa Kunle completely, he just takes off all his clothes, gets completely naked, and he proceeds to like enter a handstand, right? Which must have been kind of awkward for everyone there. And then he tells, a few of the people helping him, he says, okay, now take some sampa and put it in my butt, right? Like pack my butt with sampa, which again is probably another pretty weird request, but they already know who this guy is. So they just do it, They know he's a little bit, has what we call a nyompa naljor, like in Tibetan, like a crazy yogi. And so they pack this sampa in his butt, and he lets out a pretty big fart in front of this crowd. And the sampa, just like any flower would, because of the air, it starts to kind of form a cloud of flour above him. And this cloud of flour just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and starts to go up into the sky, and then immediately starts to rain, right? And everyone's like kind of amazed by this, like, I can't believe, finally the drought is over. Drupa Kunle helped us. And so Drupa Kunle turns to the chieftain and he says, those monks couldn't do what my butt did. So, yeah. So often, there's this humor of like yogis, and monastics and the edges between that. And so, yeah, I love
Yeah,
that story. Very funny
yeah,
story.
yeah. That's a great one. I thought this would also be a nice opportunity to tell a few Buddhist dad jokes.
Okay.
I have a few favorites that they're
Go
pretty
for it.
corny, but well, there's the classic that everybody knows about the Dalai Lama going up to the hot dog vendor, right?
Oh, I
You
hate
know
this
this one.
one.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we'll skip this one.
No, no, no. Say it, say it, say it. I
Well,
just,
I mean, this is everybody's cornball Buddhist joke. Like this is like if you know nothing about the Dharma, you tell this joke still.
exactly. That's why, because usually people come up to me and tell me, I'm like, oh, not again. I've heard it like
Yeah,
30 times.
totally,
Go for
totally,
it. Go for it.
totally.
Sorry. Sorry to
Well,
ruin it.
like I mean, it's ruined.
It's ruined. No, no, no. Say it. Go for it. Go for it.
Where the Dalai Lama said to the hot dog vendor, "Make me one with everything." Everybody knows that one.
Yeah. Womp
But
womp. That's the one.
yeah, womp womp. But I have for some reason there's a lot of Buddhist changing light bulb jokes. So how
Mm,
many Zen monks does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know. 3?
No,
How many?
the bamboo grove by the river.
Bamboo grove by the river? I don't get that one.
in like typical Zen fashion, answering a direct question with something that's very abstract and rooted in the natural world. Okay, that one didn't hit so hard. Um, how many Vipassana practitioners does it take to change a light bulb?
Oh, that's a tough one. Like 30. I'm not sure.
It doesn't matter because they're just simply noting darkness, darkness, darkness,
Nice.
darkness.
I like that one. I love
Okay,
that one.
one more. How many Zen Buddhists does it take to change a light bulb? Different joke.
I don't know how many.
4. One to change it, one to not change it, one to both change and not change it, and the fourth who goes even further, be all coming and going, who doesn't change or not change a light bulb, and also does not change or not change the light bulb.
That's dope, man. You got to make a meme out of that one. That's actually a good one.
No, it's good, and like obviously you need to have a little background in Dharma and kind of Zen practice to get it, but it kind of
Yeah.
makes light of what are like real things, and really it can kind of point towards non-duality.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I like that last one.
Yeah.
So those of you who managed to sit through this so far, I'd love to get into memes now. And so I have this kind of, I was thinking like modern memes, because
Yeah.
we have, we're all trying, those of us who teach Dharma, but also, of course, just as practitioners as well, we're trying to relate the Dharma to our modern life. And sometimes, that means, I don't think it means necessarily changing the Dharma. It just means how do we bridge it, And I see memes, and I think you do too, because we've talked about it. But I'd love to hear your kind of thoughts first. I see memes as part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Right. So anyways, just open up the conversation about memes and maybe like some personal stuff, like how you first, what were some memes that you first came across, and or do you remember coming across, Dharma or Buddhist memes and how they affected you?
So I've always kind of I've always kind of been addicted to Instagram since Instagram came out.
Yeah.
And have always just been a big meme fan in general, period. I ended up discovering a Buddhist meme page, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, because Buddhist memes are a pretty new subgenre. But I ended up discovering this Buddhist meme page called Samsara Teens, and he was kind of the originator of the Buddhist meme. I think there was another page called Buddha's Meme Folder, but Samsara Teens like really like took what was happening and what was hot in the meme community and kind of like retooled it for Dharma practitioners. And then there was another one which is no longer with us, unfortunately, called Leather Dakini,
Yeah.
which was also a great meme page, and she had her own kind of little spin on it, which was kind of like approaching the Dharma and talking about the Dharma through the lens of BDSM, but in like a really humorous, funny kind of like, self-referential way.
Totally.
She definitely didn't take herself too seriously. Um, and yeah, I just really kind of like gravitated to some of these memes, and they were brilliant, And I think the thing about memes, and this kind of goes hand in hand with practice, is what memes can do through like an image and a couple of words is really explain a very complex situation in a way that people can understand it. And I think in Dharma, that's a really important thing to have as well. Because so much of the concepts that we're dealing with in our practice are so complex, and Buddhist cosmology is so rich, and Buddhist psychology is kind of so vast that if there can be something that kind of points the way or just makes you kind of get it quickly with just a simple photo. I mean, that's almost, the flower sermon was almost a meme, right?
Wait, just real quick, just a little, I don't want to interrupt you, because I love
Sure.
where our convo is going, but just like, I don't want to assume all of our watchers or listeners here even know what a meme is. So
Okay. Yeah.
like, I know if my dad was listening to this, he'd probably be like, what's a meme? So, it's actually, I find it hard to explain what a meme is.
It's pretty hard to explain.
Would you mind taking a shot just for the listener, or just in general, what a meme is?
So a meme is generally just it's an image. It can be a very crude image, just with some kind of sardonic or sarcastic text that goes along with it. And it doesn't always have to be sarcastic or sardonic. It can be incredibly obvious. It can be kind of like taking something that's kind of overused and giving it kind of like a new light. Like one of my favorite early memes that I saw is it's the Buddha sitting and giving a sermon to a sangha, and he's saying the best way to become enlightened is to argue with people on Facebook. And that's like
that's like the greatest Buddhist meme ever. Yeah.
So that would be like an example. That would be like an example of a meme, or like taking kind of a situation that's already happening in the world and kind of making it absurd. So I don't know if you remember. Do you know who Adam Levine is? He's the lead singer for Maroon 5. I don't know if you remember. He was DMing some girl, and he was just like talking about her body, and it kind of like went all over the internet. Yeah. And there's a great Buddhist meme I like, and it's a photo of the rainbow body, and it's Adam Levine replying to it, being like, oh my god, that body of yours is absurd. And that was like what he had originally said. So it's like like kind of like taking those situations and kind of retooling it.
Yeah, and one thing you're naming, I mean, I think what I notice in memes, they do appeal to us more, those of us who have like, we have a sense of humor, and we find things funny that are somewhat sarcastic and a little bit kind of like left, brash, or kind of like, right? Like memes tend to be that often.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I pulled some of my favorite Buddhist memes, and I can describe that. I pulled some ones that are like kind of easily conveyed over audio.
Yeah.
So I'll just one is it's we all get these emails from politicians, right, asking for money constantly. So one is an email from Nancy Pelosi, and the text is, I asked you Monday, I asked you Tuesday, I asked you Wednesday, I asked you Thursday, and I'm truly sorry to ask you again today. 2 hands clap and there's a sound. What is the sound of 1 hand clapping?
That's great. What's interesting is like, these are actually just funny, just telling them, but just for the listeners who aren't really that familiar with memes, as Darfield's Gharma just said
Yeah.
a few minutes ago, like these come with images. And that's, to me, the symbolism is what kind of like you said, it's like a whole longer teaching could be said in a few sentences because whatever body language or facial expression is going along or image is going along with the text, that's what I think is so cool as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, there's another one that is fantastic, and this is such a great meme template.
Yeah.
It's split into half, and it says "me and my emotional life," and it's like a Pablo Picasso, like, abstracted drawing where it's just like the arms are over here, the eyes are up here, the legs are over
Yeah.
here. It's just a total mess. And then on the other side is me advising others, and it's just a picture of the Buddha pointing his finger at somebody.
That's great.
So, like, that conveys something. I think that we all feel sometimes, that our personal lives are a mess, but we can sometimes preach Dharma at
Yeah.
others when we're really messy inside. And
Totally.
like talking about these memes too much kind of ruins it, but yeah, I think they point at these larger kind of concepts that
Yeah.
that can really make us think.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so just to shift gears a bit, but I really appreciate you sharing those. I'm surprised how funny they are without the images, and maybe I can find a way on YouTube in the notes to even list the links if possible. We'll see. So yeah, just like I'm curious if you just share with us like how you ended up, because I know you have a love affair with memes and Buddhist memes
Yeah.
in particular. So how did you end up starting Darfield's Gharma, the
So
Instagram page?
I used to chat with Leather Dakini a lot, and I saw this drawing of Sailor Moon, the anime cartoon.
Yeah, yeah.
So I saw this drawing of Sailor Moon. Um, what was it? It was Sailor Moon kind of like morphing down into a picture of Garfield,
Mm,
and the text on it was transform your, and I forget exactly what the text was, but it was like transform your blank into blank, and it
mm.
had nothing to do with spirituality or Buddhism. But I ended up like finding a Garfield font, and like the font like Jim Davis uses for his cartoons,
Yeah.
and I slapped transform your suffering into freedom on that, and that was actually the first Darfield's Gharma meme.
Cool.
And I threw it up on the page, and yeah, and things really grew. There was one meme that I did that really like took the account off. I would have to go back into the history of the account
Yeah, because just
to find it.
to tell everyone listening, like Darfield's Gharma is it's one of the bigger meme pages. I mean, just by amount of followers, you get in a short amount of time. There's a ton of people that
Yeah.
follow it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 18,000, which, in the grand scheme of meme pages is not a lot, but I think
Yeah.
in the Buddhist meme world, it's kind of a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty niche, like Buddhist
Yeah,
memes.
yeah. Well, but I mean, like Garfield Buddhist memes is about as niche as you get.
Totally.
um, so yeah, it kind of took off. And I've done like really silly stuff with it. Like, I found a picture of like a Garfield couch
Yeah.
that was on like a comedy TV show, and I just like slapped, like, because at the time this kind of meme template was really hot, that it was like, what if we kissed doing something? Or there's a Buddhist meme that's like, what if we kissed and the Dalai Lama was watching, and the Dalai Lama is like holding up his little binoculars. So like I took it and I just slapped like, what if we meditated on the Garfield couch, and it got like 15,000 likes. It was insane.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that kind of, I think, made the account kind of take off. Um, but it's like the content I put out isn't always funny. A lot of it's just kind of like pithy Dharma,
Yeah.
like real simple Dharma, kind of condensed to go with kind of a funny image of Garfield.
Yeah, that's a good point, because like memes don't always have to be funny. They can be like
Exactly.
instructive, or yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, gonna ask you, was there any reason like why Garfield, or was it just what you said, like that you had found that script and that sort of inspired it, or is there's some love affair with Garfield that you have?
I have a long standing love affair with Garfield.
Obviously,
Like
you're in a Garfield mask.
I bought this mask specifically for this podcast. This mask, let me tell you, is from 1978 and cost me $28.
Wow, I'm
Like,
surprised that's pretty cheap from something so old.
I know. You can't buy a Garfield mask out there, and like the eBay listing for this mask was like superb condition for collectors.
Maybe
But no,
we didn't. Oh, sorry, we didn't talk about this. Like, we mentioned that you're wearing a mask, but like, you want to say something about anonymity, or if you want, I don't know if there's anything you have to say around that.
I don't really have much to say around anonymity. I think people who run meme pages kind of like to stay anonymous and kind of like, don't kind of want to do what's called an admin reveal to all their followers. And you know that I do something semi-public for work in a totally different world. So at some point I may do an admin reveal, but it's also kind of nice to just have this be kind of like the secret thing that I do on the side. Like 3 people in my life know that I do this. So it's fun. It's fun.
Cool.
And that's and the anonymity is just part of the fun, to be honest with you.
Yeah, when you told me, hey, would you be cool if I did it anonymously, and then I think I was like, yeah, I think you should get a Garfield mask. It just made me so much more stoked to do this conversation.
Yeah, totally. The only bummer is people can't see how much I'm laughing and smiling during this conversation.
Well, they can hear it.
But yeah, I've always kind of had a long-standing love affair with Garfield. Like, I was super into Garfield when I was a kid. This is kind of dharmic, but I remember when I was a child, when I was like 12, I had a Garfield poster on my wall, and the poster said, "Life is uncertain. Eat dessert first." And it was like Garfield with a piece of cake. It's like, just looking back on that, I'm like, what a lame thing to have on your wall. But yeah, it's the thing about Garfield and besides me kind of having a long love affair with Garfield, the thing about Garfield is Garfield is such a great example of our condition. Garfield is such a great example of a being that's in samsara, right? Like, Garfield loves lasagna. He loves it so much. All he wants is lasagna, right? Like, he just like, and then when the lasagna is gone, Garfield gets really upset. There's so many cartoons with Garfield with an empty panel of lasagna, and he's just like really down in the dumps. So there's Garfield's grasping of lasagna. There's Garfield's aversion to Mondays, right?
Yeah.
And Garfield's aversion to Mondays, Garfield's aversion to normal, and then there's also Garfield's delusion or ignorance that he's the cat, and Monday is a conditioned thing.
Yeah.
His life doesn't have Mondays. His life doesn't have Fridays. So yeah, I think there's grasping, aversion, and ignorance in the life of Garfield. So I've kind of ran with that concept a lot on the meme page, and have like done a lot of memes about desire and grasping that involve lasagna. And yeah, so I just, it became kind of like, I started with this one meme, but it became, as I kind of got into this, I was like, wait a minute, like, there's a lot of kind of Dharma centric content that I can do around this character, because like his desires are so upfront, his aversions are so upfront, his delusions are so upfront. So yeah, it makes for kind of a funny thing, and maybe I'm overanalyzing it a little bit, but yeah, that's kind of like, that's kind of where my head is on this, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's your process. So, I mean, I imagine, whatever is part of your creative process, including like, trying to merge Dharma with image and vibe and, Garfield's character. Like, I mean, sometimes I look at your memes and I'm like, wow, how did he come up with that? And then also, yeah, I mean, also it's almost like you're a cartoonist, but I don't know how you're making the memes. You don't have to divulge that, but if you don't want to, but it's almost like it's a cartoon. It's a cartoon. Like you're making a
Yeah,
cartoon. Yeah.
totally. So I make the memes in 10 seconds. Like
That's like
I,
very disappointing to hear, by the
the ideas for the memes. So I have a whole notepad. I have a whole notepad dedicated to kind of like pithy quotes or funny sayings or funny Dharma things or like things I could pair with Garfield. And then I have a bunch of saved Garfield images.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of just go through what I've written down, and I'm always thinking about Dharma, and Dharma is such a big part of my life. I'll be reading a Dharma book, I'll be listening to a Dharma talk, I'll just be at home meditating or just kind of contemplating, and something will hit me, and I'll just kind of pull it out, put it in the notepad, and just save it for later. And so let me just see if I can give you like a quick example here on the process.
Just while you're finding that, I also,
Yeah.
I mean, go for it. I also wanted to, yeah, I'm just curious. We've talked about, well, we talked a little bit about the power of memes and the power of Buddhist memes, but also, you and I privately have talked about like some surprises, like some surprise, I don't know, like benefits and interactions and kind of, with your community, the people who follow Darfields
Yeah.
_Gharma. And
Yeah.
I'd love to chat about that too.
Yeah,
At some point.
definitely. I mean, we can even kind of go into that right now.
Yeah.
So I think part of the reason that the account has kind of taken off, a lot of the followers of this account are not people who are Dharma practitioners. There is a good chunk of folks who are Dharma practitioners, but Garfield's kind of having a moment on the internet right now, and people who are in, from 13, 14 to 18, 19, 20 are kind of rediscovering Garfield. And I don't actually feel like, it's partially ironic, but being ironic is something that's kind of very, very millennially,
Yeah.
or very kind of Gen Xy. So it, like, I think the irony for the younger generation, people in Gen Z and even younger than that, is it's a different flavor.
Mm.
Or maybe it's not even there at all. And I think people just like legitimately love Garfield. And so a lot of the folks that follow me tend to be pretty young.
Mm.
I'm not going to disclose how old I am, but when I look at my insights on Instagram and I see that kind of the age range of people following me, I'm just like, wow,
Mm.
I'm quite a bit older than than my target audience here. And so there's this kind of resurgent interest in Garfield, and there's a lot of trans folks that follow me. There's a lot of LGBTQIA folks that follow me. And yeah, just a lot of people just kind of who are in a world that I'm not in. And some of them have no idea what the memes are about. And I'll get comments often that are like, what does this mean? And I'll do my best to
Mm.
try and explain it. And maybe there'll be a couple of follow-up questions, and sometimes the people are like, I still don't get it, and sometimes the people are like, wow, that's cool, that makes sense.
Mm.
And like, it's also, it's been an interesting kind of ride with that, because I do get a lot of folks who have really never been exposed to the Dharma at all kind of popping into the DMs and being like, hey, can you recommend a good book, a good Dharma book for
Yeah.
beginners? Like, like I'm kind of inspired by this account and what you're kind of talking about, and I want to learn more.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. I mean, that's where, obviously like these can be, a meme can teach or impart something, but it's interesting to hear, like, for some people, maybe it's their initial like entrance into the Dharma, or if it's not
Yeah,
that, they're just connecting with some wisdom from the Buddhist path through what looks like a cartoon. That's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't place too much kind of self-importance on the work. at the end of the day, like I'm doing this for fun and I'm having a blast doing it. Although I am running out of ideas.
Yeah, I think that's got to be tough. It's like being a writer, like for a
Yeah,
show or a
yeah,
cartoon. It's like the ideas just have to keep coming each week. It's challenging.
totally, totally. And it's like, how many dharmic concepts can I fit? As it stands right now, I've got 309 memes that I've done. And it's like
Yeah.
how many pithy dharma concepts can I do? Like yesterday I started talking about the 12 links of dependent origination. Like it was one of my worst liked memes because it was like way too off the deep end for people.
Yeah, like too complicated a little bit.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they're just like, a concept that like, if you talk about kind of desire, or if you talk about grasping, or you kind of talk about the human predicament that we're all in, it's easier for people to kind of relate to that than if we're talking about Nagarjuna in our memes, or if we're talking about the 12 links of dependent origination, if we're talking about not seeing and not seeing, like that stuff starts to go a little over people's heads. So I try to avoid going too deep into that stuff. Although like the other Buddhist meme pages are made exactly for people like me, and they go really deep into that stuff.
Yeah, I know some Saratines. Yeah, just do you want to name? I mean, you already named a few. Is there any other? I mean, of course, we're recommending Darfields _ Gharma if you're on Instagram. Check it out. But is there any other meme pages you'd recommend people check out? You named some Saratines. Any other ones that you're stoked on?
Yeah, so there's a meme page I really love, is the meme page's name is Esoteric Gnome.
Okay.
And Gnome's a really good memeologist. I have one of my
Memeologist. That's
memeologist.
cool.
I just made that up on the spot. But one of my favorite gnome memes is it's a picture, the classic picture of the iceberg, where it's the little bit of the iceberg on top, and then it shows it underwater. It's the massive part of the iceberg, and so the top part of the iceberg says what you can learn about Buddhism from a teacher with a valid lineage. And then the bottom part of the iceberg, the massive part of the iceberg, says what you can learn about Buddhism following meme pages on Instagram.
Damn, that's spicy. Yeah.
It's spicy, but
Yeah.
it's obviously the other way around. So there's a lot of self-referentiality about kind of how ridiculous Buddhist memeing is.
I see. So I just got it. That was sarcastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sarcastic. And there's a lot of that sarcasm around Buddhist memes being this really, really powerful and impactful way to spread the Dharma. There's a lot of sarcasm and self-referentiality about that in kind of the meme world.
That makes sense.
Which is really funny, and I really enjoy as well. So yeah, Esoteric Gnome is a great meme page. There's a guy named Aesthetic Dhamma, who is another solid meme page. Kind of takes it from. Actually, no, his memes are kind of cross lineage. It's interesting because you don't find meme pages that are super rooted in one style of Buddhism. Like everybody kind of tends to talk about everything. Everybody tends to make jokes around all different kinds of lineages, and there's a lot of funny like Mahayana versus Theravada.
I saw those
memes out there, but then there'll be like somebody running the meme page will turn around and do something completely opposite. So there's not a lot of sectarianism in the Buddhist meme world. Maybe we're going too deep here.
No, but that's interesting. Yeah, because the meme pages I've checked out, the Buddhist meme pages. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Like, definitely I'll see some like Tibetan flavor, sometimes Tibetan Buddhism, but you'll see other perspectives too. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that's very interesting. Yeah, because that in itself is a way of imparting Dharma. Just sort of talking about some of the it's almost like some of it is actual differences, but I would say some of it is like perceived differences, or how do you say it, like stereotypes, and why wouldn't a meme talk about a stereotype? Because that's the ultimate irony, right?
Totally, exactly. And I think it kind of, I think the memes kind of do that. They talk about stereotypes, and they kind of, again, to use the word absurdity, like they show kind of the absurdity. They can show like our deep identification with things,
Yeah.
and again, and not too much of a serious way.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll out myself a little bit on something. Just because like once you click on anything on social media, you just get more of it because the
Yeah,
algorithm just starts to
totally.
feed you stuff. The memes that I'm kind of like getting and enjoying lately. They're like parent memes. you know, like dad and mom, with child memes, and they're some of them are pretty good, and
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying that because some of them, once you have, for those of you who don't know, I have a small daughter, 11 month old daughter as of today's date, October, 2023. Yeah, some of like they're really true, and and the irony's there, and so if I didn't have a kid, it wouldn't be funny. So so I'm enjoying them a lot. But yeah, it's sort of like every time I scroll, it's like mom
Totally.
and dad memes,
Totally.
basically. Yeah.
You're caught in it, man. The algorithm knows you.
The algorithm got me, man. Um,
Well,
yeah,
something I kind of wanted to ask you. I don't know how much time we've got left here,
yeah. I
Scott,
was gonna
but
kind of wrap it up pretty soon. I was gonna ask you kind of, but go ahead, and then I'll
no, I just,
wrap.
I'm just kind of curious about you, like how humor shows up in your practice.
Oh yeah, yeah. We didn't go into that so much. I think I mean, just to keep it brief, I I kind of shared it earlier. For me, it's just like a lot of it relates around like, yeah, the sense of like when I see myself way too over serious and way too
Yeah.
caught in a thinking pattern, a thought pattern, and or emotional pattern, and I'm not trying to belittle anyone else. Like, yeah, we can get into serious suffering and pain with our emotions and
Yeah.
thoughts. And so it's not meant really, this isn't to diminish anyone else's experience. That's not why I'm saying this, right? But just through my own practice, I can see, how much of my thought patterns and habitual patterns are just so ridiculous at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them I can change, and some of them I can't. Some of them are just really strong, and I keep working on them, et cetera, through Dharma. But at some points, that's where I find humor, just laughing at myself, especially like
Yeah.
when I was doing long retreats alone.
Yeah.
It's just the minutia that the mind would do, because it
Yeah.
just sort of, it like increases. It's like when you're in retreat, it's not like the faucet turns down, it just turns up, it becomes like
Yeah.
a fire
Totally.
hose,
Totally.
and it was
Totally.
just so much. All I could do was laugh. It was just like so
Yeah.
intense sometimes. So for me, it actually helps in intensity. Like when things are too intense,
Yeah.
I can find some humor there. Sometimes I can't. I'm absolutely
Yeah.
just caught in it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where kind of I find it. How about you? Like how would
Yeah,
you?
I think in a really similar way, laughter has been a great tool for me to cut through.
Mhm.
Um, you know, kind of seeing myself getting caught up in a desire that's ridiculous, seeing myself getting caught up in some kind of aversion, and just
Mhm.
really taking a step back and laughing at myself has been a great tool for me to just kind of sever that, or kind of like decrease the intensity of what's kind of going on there. And
Yeah.
if I can really just take a step back and just laugh at what's going on in my mind, or just laugh at my predicament right now, or laugh at our entire predicament, the whole samsaric cycle. It can facilitate a little bit more letting go for me personally. And I've always laughter has always been a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
And people in your podcast can hear, and this, like, I'm a boisterous laugher. Like, I have a very distinct laugh. Um, and yeah, laughter's been a really great tool for me in practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, this has been really a beautiful conversation. We're close friends, like outside of this, so it's just nice to share some,
Yeah.
wisdom together, as well as to hear, this back. And some of this I actually never heard about Darfield's Gharma, and so it's just been a real pleasure. So just want to thank you for taking the time to share this with all of our listeners here.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. It was really wonderful to join you today and talk about this. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. So thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, and so folks out there, please check out, probably the fourth time I mentioned it, Darfields underscore Gharma
Gharma, G H
on.
A
Yeah, you want to spell it?
R M A, DHARFIELDS underscore GHARMA.
Cool. I'll try to put it in YouTube, but on Spotify and iTunes it won't be there. But
It's
you all can
it's just Garfield Dharma with the letter the first two letters reversed.
That's how I remember it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how I
totally,
remember it.
totally.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Scott. Good to talk to you.
See you. Take care.